Today I'm interviewing Bunny, who's a non-binary person who lives in Texas. And I quickly wanted to talk a little bit about non-binary identities and gender fluid identities and um, a particular problem that they face that might be slightly foreign to trans-binary folks and also particularly to cisgendered folks. Now, any trans person can tell you that being misgendered is a deeply painful experience, and that if it happens repeatedly, it can really sort of shake you to your foundation. That even one instance can ruin your day, but that if it's a constant thing, it can really undermine your whole sense of self. And I want you to bear that in mind when you're listening to Bunny's story about their experience living in a place where their community refuses to acknowledge them for who they are. And so they're essentially prevented from being able to live their truth. If you want to know more about non-binary identities, I would urge you to check out Luxander and Jeffrey Marsh, who are two of my favorite non-binary YouTube creators. And I think that all of us could stand to pay closer attention, because the way things are in society now, systemically, and linguistically, non-binary people are oppressed in such a way that they are forced to not only be very brave, but also incredibly patient. And I think societally we can afford to do a lot better. So with that in mind, here's my interview with Bunny.
Okay.
Hi, I am Étienne, and this is Bunny. And
Hi there.
And this is our series, Come Fund Me, where we talk to trans and non-binary people who have crowdfunding set up in order to fund their transition aspirations and the complexities of our trans lives. And so today we're going to talk to Bunny about your particular situation. I wanted to start out by asking you how you would describe your gender identity and how you came to understand it yourself.
Well, I would describe my gender identity as non-binary. I even wore my they/them shirt for today. I also enjoy the labels of gender fluid and gender queer, but primarily just the non-binary umbrella. And I came to that identity. I was dating someone who was non-binary, and to be honest, when I first heard about non-binary things, I had kind of an adverse reaction to it, because I was like, no, people can't be non-binary. And the second part of that sentence that I wasn't embracing was, nobody can be that, because if anybody was, I would be. And and it was, I struggled with it for a very long time, that living in the rural South, that can you do that? And when I was deeply in love with someone and they were non-binary, and it was just so natural for me to accept it in someone that I love, that it the question that I had about my own gender just kept getting louder, to the point where I was like, okay, this is something I need to address. And I started asking them questions about, like, well, how do you feel about this? And it's just every day it became more of this thing, until it was almost, it's like, I can't hide from this anymore. And living in the South, it was scary, because I lost a lot of friends, in the process of coming out, and lost a lot of people, and I can't be out with my family, but and I'm very early in any transitional stuff.
How would you say where you live affects your ability to express your gender?
Deeply. When I was in school, and I'm 32, so that was a while ago, but this was before gay marriage was legalized, and I was kind of the only out queer person in my school. And like, I was lucky in the fact that I was very scrappy. So I didn't get bullied so much as I just got into a lot of fights. But like the most frightening event for me in my teen years was a group of men in trucks followed me and a girl that I was with at the time because we were holding hands and like screamed slurs at us and threw things at us and only got away when only like left us alone when I stood up for ours and like yelled at them. But this area still, and I think so much progress has been made in this area, but it's still it's not comfortable. We just lost our gay bar because of even before the pandemic, and before that gay bar we had several that had been burned down. So this area is extremely violent for trans people, non-binary people, queer people of any identity. It's not a friendly place.
Oh dear. That sounds really
Yeah,
scary and horrible.
it,
Well,
it can be.
so you know, we can you can then need to tend to rely on the people closest to you, but I'm afraid to even ask, and because you also touched on this, how does your family regard your queerness or your transition?
Well, I came out to my parents as a lesbian when I was very, very young, and my mother outright rejected me, and my father, who recently passed, was fine with it, and was very much like, okay, keep boys out of the house then. Um,
I'm so sorry to
but
hear
when
about your
it
father.
came to anything, yes, thank you. He was a very complicated, and I miss him deeply, but our relationship wasn't great. I couldn't be out to him about the non-binary thing, and I'm also poly, and that was something that I couldn't be out about, and any kind of queerness. And as accepting as my father was when I was in middle school, it like Trump and everything got into my both of my parents like a poison, and
Okay.
they'd always had those leanings of kind of towards bigotry, but once Trump got elected, it was just they backslid in this really scary and terrible way. And
It's
so I'm disabled and we live with them, so it was a position where I couldn't be out to my family. I'm out everywhere else, but I just can't be with them.
what about your friends?
Um, I had kind of a smattering of my spouse was accepting, and I had some close friends who, that they've been good about it, and more of the people that I'm closest with and the more accepting are friendships that I made after the fact. But there was always kind of I had people who straight up were like, I'm not going to call you by they them pronouns. You are a woman and you need to get over it. And so there was a lot of rejection. There was a lot of people who just were not accepting of it. And like even I had someone kind of recently tell me like, well, I'm a lesbian and I'm attracted to you, so you need to understand that makes you a woman. And so I've lost a lot of friends about it.
Good grief. Have you got any? Do you have any trans or
Yeah, it was
non-binary people in your life, in real life?
um unfortunately not a lot, and none that I can see currently with the pandemic. I have some friends, but they live all at least an hour away.
Mm,
And so I can talk to them digitally, but the few trans folks that I know in this area, they don't tend to live right around here in the rural area because just with the negativity that's here, people tend to try and get out as quick as they can.
right. Now, what you mentioned that you're disabled. Can you tell us a little bit about that, if you don't mind?
Absolutely. Well, I'll try not to talk too long about it because it's quite the list. But I have seizures and a lot of just neurological issues like that causes vertigo, and I've got thyroid issues, PCOS. I've got fibro, so I'm in a great deal of chronic pain.
Oh,
Um, and I lost my insurance almost 10 years ago, so I haven't been able to see specialists, and I've just been going to, the poor folks clinic. So I suspect there's a lot more that I have that's undiagnosed that I would eventually my hope is to get to a place where I can get health care and find out more about that. But I'm tired all the time, I hurt all the time, and I have seizures is kind of the sums it up.
That
And
sounds
then I have mental health issues as well.
that sounds like it must
Sorry.
make things more complicated in an already complicated situation. Is it fair to say that, is that my ableist viewpoint, or
No,
would it
no,
be the other?
absolutely. It makes things very complicated, just in the fact that it is the world is set up for able-bodied people, and that's one of the reasons I've leaned so hard onto art, is because when I can work, I like to think of myself as hardworking and diligent,
Right.
but some days I can barely move or get out of bed, or if I have a migraine or a seizure that just takes me down for a day or two, it's just, you're not going to find a job that's comfortable with that. You're not going to find a job that's like, hey, I might miss a week because I have a bad flare and I just can't get out of bed, and but I'll be great when I'm here. So it does make everything much more complicated.
I'd imagine that it also complicates. Well, I mean, you mentioned that you lost your coverage, uh, and I guess in
Yeah.
the free clinic, they're probably not super forthcoming with being willing to deal with the fact that you're disabled as well as trans, at a guess.
Yeah, yeah, I mentioned briefly to I see a nurse practitioner, and I talked to her about like hormonal options, because with the PCOS, what I was basically told is that maybe you should think about estrogen, and it was one of those things that when she started the conversation of hormones, I'm like, well, I'm non-binary and I'm not sure if I'd like to go the estrogen route or the route of testosterone. And she visibly balked and was like, well, I wouldn't know anything about that, and we don't do treatment like that here. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll just put that in my pocket then.
Oh dear. So just shut the door immediately. No, not even a discussion to be had. And
Yeah.
without
And
private healthcare, it's not even an option. Okay.
yeah. And it's something that I would like to be able to talk to a doctor who can honestly tell me, like, this is how these things will affect your health and this is how these things will affect your health, in order to make more educated decisions on what I would like to do with transition.
Okay. Now, what is your current living arrangement?
Currently, I live in my high school bedroom with my spouse. We were living with partners for a while. We lived there for about a year, but that situation got bad. And it was bad enough that I came back, from the abuse there to the abuse I know. And uh, so it's my mother is an alcoholic, and she's, she can be pretty awful a lot of the time. So living here is difficult, and not just for us, but for her as well. Especially like right now with my father gone, like I'm helping her to get his affairs in order
Right.
and stuff. But she's made no secret that she wants us out, that she wants us gone.
Okay. And so for you, it makes sense then to get out of Dodge as well, as they say, because you want to get somewhere where you're going to be able to get insurance and you're going to be able to get transition support of some kind and healthcare for all of your other needs. Have you got a place in mind where you could move to, that where those things would be better?
We do. Actually, we have several friends in Maine, and a very good friend in Maine who's even offered that, that she'll let us set an RV on her land and that she will help us get set up. And she's always been a good friend to us. And Maine has more health care. Maine has as well legalized medical marijuana, which is a big deal for me with the seizures and
Right.
the chronic pain and everything. And there's just a lot more access to social services, and the entire area there is just a little more accepting of trans and queer people, and a little more helpful for health issues.
I think of Maine as sort of a Democrat place versus Texas sort of a Republican place. Is that an oversimplification?
Yes.
Um,
I would say that the rural areas of Texas are blood red, but we have very blue cities.
Austin.
Um, but there, yes, Austin. Keep Austin weird, and Dallas and the DFW. That there's some very blue places in Texas, but I don't live there.
Right.
And the cities are very, very expensive
Right.
as well.
So now, what would be involved in getting you to Maine? You know, what sort of resources do you need to mobilize in order to get from where you are now to Maine?
Well, the RV. We've got a place for the RV, and she's willing to help us look up there. RVs are considerably cheaper there, and we're just looking
Right.
for, the bare bonesest. We're willing to put in sweat equity and fix it up and do whatever we can.
Right.
So we're looking at the bare bones for like a couple of $1,000s for the
Right.
RV, and then a couple of $1,000s in the process of just getting there and
Yeah.
having food and getting us established, that our friend can also help my spouse with a job. And I've got my Etsy, which brings in a little bit of income that I do my best with it, and I've been happy with how that's gone. But so right now, just money, but also, if anybody is watching this, is in Maine, any help that they can offer, if they know jobs, if they know connections, if they sell RVs, and so appreciated.
Oh, your disabilities make medical transition more complicated. But I wonder if there are any sort of alternatives that you would like to be able to explore. You know, that a bit of money might help you out with, and if there are any
Uh,
surgeries that might benefit you.
Definitely. I don't know if top surgery is going to be an option for me. But some things that I think would at least make me feel more comfortable is I would like to change my wardrobe. That
Right.
would be, and it's something that just keeps um taking a back seat. And the fact that I have a very femme wardrobe, that most of my wardrobe is just leggings and dresses because they're comfortable and they're cheap.
Right.
And I would like to be able to express my more masculine side more often.
Right.
But the masculine clothes I tend to veer more expensively. And I also I don't know if this is transitional or anything, but I I would like tattoos. Like that's something that for me is very connected to how I view myself, is that I do eventually want to have a lot of ink. And like I know that people differ on like if that counts as a gender affirming thing, but I think for me it would be that just
Well, I mean, if it is for you, and if other options that people would normally take are off the table, I don't see where where anybody stands to invalidate that for you. Like, if it's gender affirming to you, I think, like, it's such a personal journey that we go through, isn't it? It's something that's and and also I think that the whole
yeah,
concept of being trans is about living your personal truth. This is where the bigots get us completely wrong. Like,
yeah,
they think that we're trying to emulate something, and it's nothing like that at all. We just want to be ourselves, don't we? So I'm fully in support of
exactly.
gender affirming tattoos. And in fact, I can think of a lot of trans guys who get like sort of chest pieces, to help sort of cover up their scars, that are sort of gender affirming, and
Yeah,
that
I've
can be
seen
quite
some of those and
gendered
they're
as well.
fantastic.
Yeah. So
If
sure.
if I were able to get top surgery ever, that would definitely be something that I wanted to do, is get chest tattoos.
So do you have sort of chest dysphoria?
It goes back and forth, and that's one of the reasons that I feel I land very firmly in the gender queer and gender fluid, is because Sometimes I'm fine with boobs and like, hey, I love boobs. Boobs are great. But sometimes I want them nowhere near me.
Right.
And it very much fluctuates from day to day, as sometimes they feel like a giant weight to forgive the pun.
Not at
But
all.
and sometimes, you know, I am fine with dressing femme. And if I were to explain, the one thing that the one thing that always feels good for me is they them pronouns. No matter how I'm feeling, no matter what day it is, I always appreciate they them pronouns. And I
Right.
also like really bright garish colors, like and and that's often, unfortunately, I think, gendered very feminine. Like bright colors and neon things are often seen as a feminine thing, but for me, it's just they're pretty and I like them.
We need to smash that, don't we? We're just, you know, like, as
Absolutely.
I was just having this discussion earlier, how, you know, like, I'm a pretty masculine guy, but yet I love the color pink. Like, I absolutely love the color pink. And right now I don't quite feel like, because I'm pre-top surgery myself, I feel a little
Yeah.
bit shaky on wearing any pink clothes, for fear of being
Yeah.
misgendered. But I'm fully in support of smashing all of the expectations as to who can have which colors. My phone case is bright purple. I just got a new phone case, and it's bright purple. I don't know where it is,
Absolutely.
because I love purple too. You know, it's just,
Pink and purple are my favorite colors, and one of the reasons for that, and I think it's is because they're the colors of the unknown. They're
cool.
the colors that represent all of the ultraviolet spectrum and the things that
Yeah,
we don't
totally.
see. And
Wow, I never even thought of it that way, but they're totally my favorites. Wow, thank
they're
you.
magical and they're beautiful. Of
They are
course.
magical. They are magical and beautiful. Ah.
They
Yeah,
are.
absolutely. Yeah, I think it's really interesting what you say too, because I watched this whole video once by a non-binary creator that I follow, that was talking about, like, how do you create an ungendered, you know, like a non-binary gendered chest. And it was a really interesting conversation, yeah, because it's like, it's not so straightforward, is it, necessarily, to say that it's,
Yeah.
because
And I
there
think
are
what
binary
is non
expectations. You couldn't just have one either, like that. Maybe you could. Do you think someone would have just one?
like an Amazon, you know, that they would have them for the rumor that they had them for the bow quiver. I love that.
Yeah.
And beyond that, I haven't much thought about it. It's I feel I've identified as non-binary for several years at this point, but I still feel so new in my transition, just because I haven't been able to express a lot of that in myself. And I used to be able, before all of this, I did a little bit of drag. And even my drag persona is, I would do glitter beards, and it was like bright colors. And so even when I'm presenting as my most masculine mask, it's still glitter and rainbows.
Still
So
fabulous.
as where as where I want to land eventually, I'm still kind of figuring that out. And if I think as far as surgeries go, I'm unsure, but I wish I could just shapeshift. So however I was feeling, that I could present in that way.
I wonder if we could talk about your Etsy a bit, because people obviously can get money to you by ordering things from your Etsy. So
Yes, absolutely.
I'm just gonna bring this up here on screen share,
Okay.
so that we can have a look. All right, so
Okay.
this is your Etsy page. Can you sort of walk us through what kinds of things people can get if they visit your Etsy page?
Absolutely. I've been doing a lot of thrift flips lately because, you know, I have an attachment to taking something and transitioning it into something new. And um, but I also make a lot of accessories and jewelries. I make resin art. I sculpt little charms out of polymer clay. I sew little accessories out of felt. So I do a little bit of everything, and I take commissions on, you know, through stuff, so I'm always willing to work with people. But as far as the Etsy right now, I've been focusing on kind of like thrift flips and painting things and doing a lot of resin as well.
I've got, these are the resins here, aren't they? You've got some.
Yes, and those are all resin pieces that I painted on. That I
Right.
poured the resin and then like painted, yeah, painted the stars or the clouds or the aliens, and then sealed it in with more resin. The candlestick is actually one of the things that I get the most compliments on and has the most favorites, but no one's bought it yet.
You're
And it
kidding me.
was just something, it was a funky little candlestick that it was beaten up, and I found it in a thrift shop, and I was like, oh, this is too cool because it's topsy-turvy and it's curvy, but
Yeah,
it stands up and will actually hold a candlestick.
amazing.
So I painted it with a rainbow gradient because I felt like that would really bring out how kind of topsy and turvy and weird it is, and
Oh, it looks amazing.
I just thought it was such a cool piece.
Totally. What with Halloween coming up, I noticed that you've got these fantastic looking jack-o'-lantern earrings that people, I mean, that's a must-have item if I ever saw one for this coming year.
Thank you. Yes, I love anything Halloween and spooky, so I've got like the little jack-o'-lanterns and then the spooky colored lollipops next to it, and I've got some little ghosts that I've painted, and I'm going to be doing a lot more spooky stuff before October gets here. That my next update is going to be entirely spooky themed, and I'm going to have, you know, pumpkins and bats and little cute ghosts and all that kind of stuff, because who doesn't love Halloween?
And I saw also that you've got these ghosts. You said there's going to be more Halloweeny sort of items, but I noticed that right here in the top
Yes.
left corner, you've got these little mini canvases with the cute little ghosts. That's quite Halloweeny.
I do. Those are the
You're going to
first.
dress
Those
up
are the
the
first
backdrop.
wave of the Halloween.
Amazing,
Yes.
fantastic.
The Patreon is still relatively new. I'm working on expanding it in the tiers, but right now I've just got the $1 tier, and it serves or $1.20. I think that they added taxes or something,
Mm.
but it serves as kind of, I put up behind the scenes stuff, and as I expand the tiers, it's going to be more like people get, I don't know, maybe a first chance at the items or stuff like that. But right now, it's just a wonderful way to see what I'm doing behind the scenes and support a queer creator.
Fantastic. And I noticed when I was on your Patreon page here that it says tarot. It says arts and crafts, tarot, and more. And I'm going to hone right in on that tarot. Would you be willing to do readings for people for donations or for a fixed price of some kind?
Absolutely.
You know, do you do quite a bit of tarot? Have you been doing that for a while?
I got my first deck and started practice when I was 8, and I'm 32 now, so I've been doing tarot for over 2 decades, and it's a deep passion of mine. That I'm not a religious person, but I'm very spiritual, and tarot was always just something that I could take personal solace in. And I don't do, I do mainly art, but I have a few wonderful and very loyal customers who come to me and always say such sweet things about my readings. And so it's not one of the things I market the most, because I do mainly market the art, but I'm always happy to do tarot, and is definitely something I feel very passionate about.
Okay, and for anyone who's listening, if they wanted to get a tarot reading from you, how would they go about doing that?
I would say that probably I'm most active on Twitter, so a Twitter DM, or I'm also on Telegram, the app Telegram, if they wanted to message me there. That I'm either Bunny Faye, like you see there on the Patreon. I'm either Bunny Faye or Bunny Doom
Right,
on everything. I'm Bunny Faye on Twitter and Instagram,
right.
and I'm Bunny Doom on um,
Etsy.
Etsy and Telegram.
If you could let the people know what these funds would mean to you. You know, if there was
Um,
anything that you could address to the people who go to the Etsy or who get a tarot card reading or who go to your Patreon or who go to your PayPal, all the links will be in the description. What would you want to say to those people?
just my deepest and most sincere thanks, even for listening to this and for paying attention and letting me tell my story. But the funds go directly currently towards art, and all of this is our only income. So it keeps me and my spouse fed, and it keeps us in medication. And like, I am an insulin controlled diabetic, and I'm on several other medication, and they're the kind of medications you really don't want to lapse.
Mm.
So right now every cent is survival, and we're hoping, like, with the second stimulus check, and then maybe if we can put a foot push into fundraising, that it'll be able to get us out of a bad situation and into a better one.
You mentioned that that the Etsy and the Patreon are just sort of helping to keep you afloat, basically. And we want to hopefully be able to raise some funds for you to be able to get that RV and to be able to afford your move so you can get to Maine to a better life. And so you've got a fundraiser set up with that in mind, haven't you? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I do. Right now I've got it's one of the PayPal pools. It's just the easiest thing to organize at the time, and it's set up to help us, relocate. I think it's set at like $3,000, which I felt would be, the kind of the bare minimum to, like, that's the number that I feel in my head that, like, if I have that, I can get out. I can, and realistically, it might take more than that, but any funds raised and is just so helpful, and should hopefully help us to actually, out of here and get to a place where we can get healthcare and better job market and friendlier communities and just more opportunities and all that.
Some in real life friends who will call you they them without being prompted, and some people
Yes,
who will
without
not
having to
shout,
badger us
who will
about it.
not shout at you from trucks. Sounds like a reasonable request. Hopefully the people at home
Yeah,
are moved to get to get a few bucks together for that.
and that would be wonderful and so appreciated.
So it would be a big, huge thank you from us if anyone wanted to help, by contributing and also by sharing this
Yes,
funny story around, and maybe as a community we can help to uplift you. That would be great.
that would be wonderful. And thank you so much for having me and interviewing me. And I think you're doing really good work, and I can't wait to see how this project of yours grows and what you do with it.
Thank you ever so much for tuning in. Down in the description, you'll find links to all of Bunny's various online presences, including Etsy, Patreon, PayPal, Twitter, and I would encourage you to check those out. If you want to help this channel to reach a wider audience, it would be very helpful for you to react to this video, to leave a comment and subscribe. All of those things will help boost our position in the algorithm, and therefore we can reach a wider audience. And obviously, donations for Bunny are very gratefully received. Oh, and if you yourself are a non-binary or a binary trans person, gender fluid, gender queer, and you are raising funds for your treatment, or just to be able to live your life in freedom of your true expression, please do get in touch with me. In the links, I've also put my Twitter. You can tweet at me or DM me. My DMs are open, or you can leave a comment on this video, and I read the comments. I would love to have you on the show. So thank you for tuning in.